All right, so here it is, Tim. Here it is. Let's bring it in. Liberal America is embracing firearms, and let me add my own little subtitle to the betrayal and, and the despising nature of gun controllers everywhere. This is a betrayal, Tim.
They're going to get
I feel betrayed.
excommunicated. They're going to get kicked right
They
out
are.
of being liberals. They're going to have
They
to
are.
find another
I mean,
party. Yeah.
I mean, there is a purity. There's a litmus test. Let's be real.
Mhm.
You can't be a feminist, woke, purple hair and have a gun. Those two things, you can't have that.
No, and we
That's
also
not
know
good.
that the far left, if you don't toe the line 100%, you go from being, part of the in crowd to quickly being attacked viciously by your former, cohorts in liberalism. And so
That's true.
it's a
Yeah.
dangerous path to go down. I mean, they
It is.
face being excommunicated. They're trying to choose safety and common sense and weighing that against lunacy and purple hair and crazy stuff.
Wow, we came out swinging. We came out swinging this Friday. Yeah. It's that's kind of one of the things that happens when you're part of the most inclusive and most loving and most open-minded political movement in the world until you disagree with them. Anyway,
Yes. As long as you agree,
everyone,
with me.
as long as you agree with it, I'm so openly accepting. Anyway, that's another thing for another story. So let's dive into this, Tim, because it turns out the betrayal is real. This is number 2. The proportion of registered Democrats who have a firearm in their home has jumped significantly over the past few years. That's weird. With some analysts saying rising crime in urban areas could be behind the increase. Could it?
Could maybe.
Oh.
Well, let's see. Either they're just suddenly taking interest in the shooting sports, or they're scared for their safety and they're exercising their
That's weird.
constitutional rights.
It is weird.
And this is another thing that's interesting about these polls. So keep in mind, gun ownership they're trying to paint that as a taboo subject in the United States.
Mhm.
So people don't necessarily want to confess to being gun owners. So the fact that the NBC poll shows that leftists are buying firearms at an increased rate, keep in mind those numbers don't truly reflect the number of people that are likely buying guns because they don't want to tell some random dude on the phone, "Yeah, I bought a gun yesterday."
Exactly. Yeah, it's under my bed. What?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
exactly.
suspect it's much higher than what they're telling us it is in this NBC poll.
Oh, me too. In fact, I think you will find this extremely fascinating. So this next part, it's delicious. All right, let's go with number 3, Dr. Button Pusher. I want to show Tim the greatness. So in November of 2023, the survey found that 41% of Democrats said they live in a household with a gun, up from 33% in a similar survey in August of 2019. Okay, so remember, 2023, 2019. Notably, 33% of Democrats also said they live with a gun in 2004, indicating the sharp rise has been concentrated over the past 4 years. No.
Yeah.
No, what could that be? Do you think it's because Mars was in retrograde, or Venus came around the sun a different way?
Maybe.
He's either dying or this is a setup.
C-19.
Yeah, that was
The Wuhan Weezer was about 4 years ago. And,
Oh my God! Not the Wuhan Weezer. That's the worst, and also the best thing I've ever heard. Oh man, that's good. I've never heard that before. That's fantastic. But yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe, you know what, Tim? Maybe I'm just spitballing here because we were all there. Maybe it was said Wuhan Weezer, which is fantastic.
Well, I mean, that's 4 years ago. We had a lot since then too, right? We had years of unrest and and in places like Portland, I would imagine gun ownership has gone up quite a bit there, given what's been going on last few years.
Yeah, it's odd because I mean, if you think back to the outbreak, and then you think about all the reaction to the outbreak and all the woke, the not woke, the civil unrest, the bonfires for warmth that burned entire cities down that were mostly peaceful bonfires.
Mostly peaceful, though. Yeah.
Mostly peaceful. Yeah, I can't imagine why. And then a lot of progressive DAs just letting criminals out on the street to cause chaos consistently because, it's not fair. I can't imagine why we'd be up this far. In fact, Tim, I find this part absolutely fascinating because you were here for this. I wasn't, sadly. I wasn't, but you can tell me what it was like right now. This is number 4. The percent of American adults reporting a gun in their household was 53% in January of 1994, 52% in March of 1989, and statistically indistinguishable 51% in the polls back in 1968 and 1971. So, Tim, this is kind of weird because if we're on the front end right now and it's 2023 and we're at 51, 52%, and then the last 10 to 15 years were a little bit of a lull. And then we're returning back to 94, 89, 68, and 71. That would indicate that the gun control approach and the gun control kind of spike would be a blip on the radar, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And keep in mind, once again, those numbers are probably a bit low because I can guarantee you if
True.
somebody called my house, like, hi, I'm a pollster. How many guns do you own? I'm like, guns? What guns? People don't want to tell people on the phone what they
No, they
have.
don't.
So I would imagine that the ownership is much higher because I can tell you as a kid when I was growing up, I can't think of a family that didn't have a gun of some
Correct.
sort. So, and be that a shotgun for bird hunting or a deer rifle or personal protection firearm. Everybody I knew had a
Someone
gun.
had it.
Everybody's
Yep.
parents had a gun. It wasn't
Yep.
anything strange, unusual. It was just
Nope.
normal.
It's
But
becoming. I think what we've seen, and I'm going to do a special report on this at some point in time. But I think what we have seen over the last 10 to 15, 20 years was an anomaly of people bucking the long-term trend and trying to do the whole virtue signaling, the rise of liberalism,
mhm,
the rise of the anti-gun move. Because if you look all the way in our history, up until about the 80s is roughly when it started coming into fruition, right around when Reagan was shot through the Brady United. Um, and then after that, in the Clinton era, which kind of gave them a little bit of a hit, they didn't get the hint. They went Obama, they went Biden, and it's reversing. I mean, it is. I mean, I think in the next 50 years, you look back at this on an actual timeline, and you'll see a dip down, but then it's going to return right back to that average. I mean,
yeah.
that's what the data is showing. I
Yeah, I
mean,
think that they're obviously cultures go through evolutionary periods,
hmm
culturally and societally, people's views will change. And a lot of that, I mean, we saw a really, really heavy push at the academic level, at the media level,
hmm
at the legislative level. We saw the anti-gunners just go full court press and they were trying to sway people into believing they should surrender their rights. And I think that they were making some progress, and then we got into modern times where
correct,
everything is quickly unraveling and people are like, holy cow, I was sold a bill of goods. I want my guns.
right.
you
Well,
know,
well,
it's people are realizing that, look, it's first of all, it's not abnormal to have a firearm. It's perfectly
no,
normal in the United States. There's nothing dangerous or taboo about it, despite what the
right.
media wants to tell you. And people are starting to come back to the realization that their rights are actually important and that they are their own first responder, because
hmm
time and time again we find out that police are usually not on scene until after the crime has already long since been committed and the perps are either dead or gone already, right? So
That's correct.
you're left to deal with that situation on your own, and people really were slapped in the face with that during the last 4 years with the Wuhan Weezer and all the other stuff that was going on. So yeah, people are going to start coming back to their rights. Like, yeah, man, this is nuts. I'll take care of myself.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. That rugged
yeah.
American individualism's on the rise.
America? I mean,
America?
if I had a bald eagle screeching right now, I'd play it, but I don't. Maybe
Did you?
Dr. Button Pusher can throw one in there. America. All right, Tim, this is cool because you and I just walked through exactly where this author went. Check this out. This is number 5. This is the last sentence, but I want to show you this. Seen in a longer perspective, they could reasonably be seen as a return to the U.S. historical norm.
There you go. See,
Boom.
and what's funny is I don't read these things before we do them. Like
I
you
know.
you
That's the
got to
best
find them, and
part.
I do the reaction stuff, and so
Yeah.
that is so funny. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. We're
hmm
returning to historical norms. This is what American culture is. This has gotten us through our 200 plus years of history, and
hmm
diverting away from it and surrendering our rights is not how we
Didn't
maintain our
didn't
freedoms
work.
going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't work. In fact, this is the part where the wound is open, is now the salt comes. Are you ready for the salt, Tim? Here
Yes.
comes the salt. All right, here we go. However, he acknowledged the changing party basis of gun ownership, commenting, As to why household gun ownership increased among Democrats in particular, it may be a response to recent increases in crime rates in big cities where Democrats claim a larger share of the population.
You think? Why do you think I
You
cited
think?
Portland as an example?
You think that's the reason?
I
That's
mean,
exactly the reason.
guys, just think about how crazy things have been the last few years. Things that it seems like a bad B movie plot. Could imagine a time in
Mhm.
America where people just say, hey, government and people and police and citizens, get out of this area. This is our whatever zone. And you stay away. And we're
The
gonna
Chaz? Are you
and we're gonna
referring to
line
Chaz?
this with violent militants, and this is going to be our party, and we don't care who owns this property, we're taking it over, and you can do nothing. And then the government goes, oh gosh, everybody pull back, pull back, everybody, it's okay, it's mostly
Yeah.
peaceful, you know.
Mostly peaceful. Mostly.
And then of course then there's a shooting, and then there's violence, and then people are like, all right, that's enough, and they get them all out of there. But
It's so weird.
it's so, yeah, it is so weird. It's like, so do we let the children play, or do we discipline and spank the children and go back to norm?
That is
And so
so
we're spanking our
1980s.
children now, and we're going back to the norm, which is
That is so
freedom.
1980s.